there, listeners, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn, and today we're going to be talking about something you may not have considered before: turning your passion project into your full-time business. In other words, if you've ever dreamt of leaving your 9-to-5 and turning something you're passionate about into your full-time job, this episode is for you.
Are you a strong, independent woman who's passionate about her career? Then this podcast is perfect for you. Based on her book, The Career Woman's Secret Playbook, career coach Dr. Dawn Hamby shares the kind of insider secrets you can only know if you've hired, fired, and promoted employees over the past 30 years.
Ladies, I'm on a mission to help busy women just like you create a career and life you love without sacrificing your work-life balance to get it. Come join me as we inspire and motivate each other only as women can, and have lots of fun along the way.
With Dr. Dawn's tools, strategies, and action steps, you can unleash your personal and professional power in a whole new way. Here's today's episode.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm so glad you're here to join us for episode 49 of the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast. Like I said in the intro, I'm Dr. Dawn. I'm your host of the podcast. I'm also the CEO and founder of Dr. Dawn Shop Talk. We're a consulting business that dives into topics just like these. We do workshops and seminars. We do one-on-one coaching. So if you think we can help you in any way, please make sure you reach out to us. You can contact us on our website at drdawnshoptalk.com, and you can also get tons of free resources there, so be sure to check it out. All right, you guys, let's get to it. Let's get to these tips, these tools and strategies that I actually used before I decided to step away from my full-time job and create this company. I am so excited to bring you these strategies because, like me, you might have been thinking in the back of your mind, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to do this always? Am I going to stay with this profession? Am I going to stay with this industry? Am I ready to pivot or try something new? And maybe, like me, you didn't really necessarily start off thinking you would be a business owner, but you saw something that you could do maybe on the side, this passion project, if you will, and you realize that you're just getting so much joy and fulfillment out of that you're wanting to figure out, could I turn this into a business? Now, another reason I'm so excited you're here is, you guys, I have the most exciting announcement. I am starting a series called our Monthly Motivation. So each and every month, I'm actually going to be interviewing powerful and inspiring career women that are really making a difference out there. These are women that I look up to and admire. In many cases, these are women I've actually worked with, and I cannot wait to start bringing you these interviews to our podcast. Now, as you know, this podcast is really meant as an extension of the book that I wrote for career women. It's a way to have a deeper dive on topics that I'm very passionate about. The format of our podcast has been to give you tips and tools and strategies each and every week to help you on your career path, whether you're getting ready to pivot, maybe put your hat in for that promotion. Maybe you're just trying to upskill just a little. Maybe you're trying to turn your current job into your dream job. These are all the topics that we tackle so that you can have a better career life, a better professional life, and we know all of that can spill over into our personal lives. So I want to make sure that I am continuing to bring you those tools and strategies, but I also know our audience could benefit from hearing from other amazing career women that could bring a different perspective. And so I'm so excited to start that series. And so you guessed it, our next episode, which by the way, is a very special milestone for us, our 50th episode. I could not think of a better beginning to this program but to bring you an interview with someone that I admire. I have worked with her, I've known her for a couple years now. I've had the privilege of actually working with her. She has been my business coach. She is my podcast coach, and she's a podcast host that I've admired for many, many years. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to announce that next week I am bringing to you the podcast host of the She's Just Getting Started podcast. This podcast is not only so special for me because I found this years ago and helped inspire me to actually start my own business and my own podcast, but Kimberly Brock, who is the podcast host, has so much amazing knowledge to share. Her podcast is in the top 1% of all podcasts, of all business podcasts. So we are so lucky to have her as our special guest. When I was thinking about who I wanted to have as my very first guest, she was the person. She was the only person because I wanted to bring to our audience the young lady who really helped me make that final decision to start my own company and, yes, to definitely start a podcast. I had already written the book, but it hadn't gotten published yet. She actually had me as a guest on her podcast. So before she actually is interviewed, before she comes and I share this episode with you, episode 50, be sure to check out her podcast. Again, it's called She's Just Getting Started. It's everywhere you listen. And go back and listen to episode 122. You are going to hear such a different Dr. Dawn because I was at the very stage that I'm talking about right now. I was trying to decide if I was going to leave. And was I going to start this company? Was I going to just write books on the side? Maybe start this podcast? I had already started the YouTube channel, but not all of this had come together yet because I had an amazing career and I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave it. I was in that unusual situation where I actually loved my job, so I didn't really have to leave, but I knew that deep down inside, I was ready to do something different because I had the blessing of already kind of checking off every item on my mental to-do list of what I wanted to accomplish by working for the beautiful state of Arkansas. I had a chance to have several different roles. And in my 31-year career, I only had 4 jobs. 2 of those 4 were presented to me. I didn't even have to interview for them because branding led the way. Right? I had established a professional brand that was stellar enough to get noticed by the right people. So the past 2 positions I had were actually offered to me. That's what I want for you. I want you to, if you need help with your resume, yes, you can reach out to us. We do offer resume writing services, but ideally, I would love your brand to be so awesome that jobs come your way without you even having to interview or put out your resume. So you guys, I have a whole chapter about that in the book. I definitely have other episodes about branding, so be sure to check that out. So again, I'm so excited to bring this series to our audience. So I cannot wait to interview the lovely Kimberly Brock. And yes, she's going to be our special guest for next week's episode. So in this week's episode, of course, I'm talking about how do you make the decision? What tools and strategies would you use? So the reason I'm talking about it now is because when Kimberly's here next week, she's going to actually show you how. So this episode is going to help you kind of think about, could I turn my passion project into my full-time job? How exciting would that be? And then after this episode, again, I want you to tune in next week so you can hear from her. And she's going to give you the nitty-gritty of how she helps women do just that. Now, let me say this. Even if you don't think you'd ever be a business owner one day, you may have a girlfriend right now who maybe has been thinking about it. Send her this episode. Let her know about next week's episode. And here's something else. You may never have thought about being a business owner. I really didn't. But you might have a gift you really need to start sharing with the world, even if it's just your side hustle, because your passion project, which actually is sort of the side hustle, really could become a full-time business. What if it's just something you might do later on, maybe when you retire, but you don't have to wait for retirement. I took early retirement so that I could help fund my company and get it off the ground. And I'm so fortunate I had the opportunity to do that. All of these things have led me to where I am now and gives me not just the expertise, but sort of the path on how to help you get there without having to maybe make some of the same mistakes, right? If you can learn from people who have gone before you, oh my gosh, the heartache, the time, and the money it will save you. That's why I'm so passionate about our podcast and our YouTube channel, because I want to do the same for someone else. So, you guys, with all that being said, let me share now these specific tools and strategies that really helped me. Before you take this leap of faith, and it actually is a leap of faith, it is really critical to evaluate whether or not your passion project even has the potential to become a full-time business. So I want you to start by asking the same questions I asked myself. Okay, here we go. Question number one, I want you to check the market demand. In other words, is there a demand for your product and service? And that's a double-edged sword. If you, for example, coaching, let me take that as an example. Yes, I'm one of millions of career coaches. Maybe it's not millions, but I'm one of many. Here's what market demand showed me. Yes, I am one of many. That means there is a market for it. But that's why I'm saying it's a double-edged sword. Because sometimes when you see there's a lot out there, you think, oh, well, there's no way I'm going to stand out. What's going to make my company different? What's going to make you different is that you're going to bring your own expertise and life experience to the table. So just first see if it's something people are buying. Is it a product or service that has high demand? Does it matter that there may be a lot of them? Okay. If that was the case, Starbucks never would have started. Starbucks could have been like, oh, well, there's already coffee shops out there. But what did they do? They brought a unique experience. They kind of created an atmosphere. They even make their coffee an experience in of itself, right? So sort of like this high end with all of these choices and varieties. If they went in thinking, oh, well, there's a million coffee shops, what can I do differently? It would have stopped them in their tracks. Okay. So again, don't get discouraged because there's other people out there. That shows you there is a demand for it. All right. Number two, profitability. You need to really think about whether or not this project, this passion project, this business, could it sustain you financially? So what you got to do is start by calculating what the overall cost would be in starting your business. Number three, scalability. Could this business grow? It's okay that the first couple of years there may not be much profit, okay? You might be spending more than what's coming in, but that's typical. The first 2 to 3 years of any business is going to be a little bit more of a struggle, but you still need to be prepared. Ask yourself, how could it grow? Once I kind of get my company off the ground, what could I do to expand my products and services? And if you have solid answers and you're feeling good about it, you're ready for phase two. Phase two, I'm calling Create Your Business Playbook. What I mean by that is I want you to plan as much as you can ahead of time. You need to create your own roadmap to success. And here's what it should include. Okay. Number one, I love a good executive summary. I've written a lot of these, but it really is a good way to have a solid summary of what your overall business goals are going to be and also what your mission and vision would be with the business. You can include all of that in your summary. Number two, that market analysis. Okay, so remember when we were talking about whether or not there would be a demand for your product or service. In this part of your blueprint, right, your playbook, I want you to take a look at your industry, get some insights, look at who your target market would be. Look at who your competition is. Remember, there's plenty of work out there for us all. So make sure you go back. If you haven't read this in my book or you haven't seen these videos, go back to mindset. Come from an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. It's very important as you're looking at your competition. You bring something special to the table. So again, don't get discouraged about your competition. Number three, come up with a marketing strategy. You don't have to spend a gazillion dollars on this, but you want to have a basic idea of how you're going to market your business. A podcast, for example, is a wonderful way to market your business. YouTube, whatever feels comfortable for you. Could you spend marketing dollars? Absolutely. But again, there's ways to start that smart. I don't want you to spend just a whole lot of money at the beginning. So there's tools and strategies you can use to market in a budget-friendly way, and don't underestimate the power of grassroots marketing. So go out there to your local chamber of commerce, go out there to your local BNI group, Business Networking International. Make sure you're connected. And if you do that, that naturally is going to help you market your business without having to break the bank. Number four, speaking of the bank, let's talk about financial projections. This is where you need a detailed financial plan on how much it's going to cost you to get started. Now, if you do something like consulting, like what I do, there's really not a lot of overhead. There's easy entry into the market, right? You need a computer, maybe a little bit of lighting. You need a good microphone if you're going to do something like a podcast or a YouTube channel. You need Wi-Fi. But as far as setting up the service you're really providing to your client is your expertise, your advice, right? So if you're doing one-on-one coaching or making presentations and workshops like I do, you just have to have the ability to do that. Like for me, I use Zoom and I'm going to pay for that professional plan. Maybe you need email marketing, so you may have to pay for that if that's not part of your website. You need a website, all of these things, right? But you can do so in a budget-friendly way to increase your chance of success of turning this passion project into a full-time business. And then last but not least, number five, you need an operational plan. In other words, how are you going to run your business day to day? Kind of create your dream schedule. What would that include? Because, there's so many hours in the day, you don't want to turn into a workaholic, but the first couple of years, you're going to probably have to devote more time to your business than you would later. And there's nothing wrong with that, because guess what? If it's your passion project, I promise you, take it from me, this does not feel like work at all. I love everything about what I do. I love coming up with podcast ideas. I love writing books. I act like I have 100 books. I have one book right now, you guys, and I'm working on the Audible version, so stay tuned to that. But what I'm saying is I have more books that I'd love to write. I love working with my clients, my one-on-one coaching clients. I love working with my group coaching. I mean, I'm not going to go on and on and on, but you get the point. You need to have these 5 steps in place in order to have a successful phase 2 before you really look any further. Okay, you guys? So if you've completed phase 1 and 2, you're now ready for phase 3. Phase 3, I'm calling test the waters. So in other words, before quitting that full-time job, right, that reliable paycheck, I don't want you to do that until you really tested the waters. So in other words, let's go ahead and test your business idea, but on a smaller scale before you leave your day job. And here's how. I want you to do 3 things. Number 1, I want you to create some sort of beta testing or pilot program. So in other words, try your goods and services on a smaller scale. Many times folks might offer like some free good or service in exchange for feedback. I would not recommend doing free, because oftentimes in my experience when I've done that, people really value what they pay for, and then price it at what you want to price it at. Now, if you struggle with pricing, I can help you on that with one-on-one coaching, but oftentimes, unfortunately, that can be a struggle, right? Because if you're offering a service instead of a product, it's really hard to see what your competition normally would charge, because it can vary. In consulting, it can definitely vary. It really depends on your level of experience, your level of expertise, your education, all those kinds of things. So pricing, you might struggle with that a little bit, but even if you do, price it at what you think is reasonable, and then offer a big discount when you're beta testing, right? So you can save 75% off in exchange for your feedback, right? You can kind of post that, go ahead and use things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever feels natural to you, in order to get enough people to give you some real good feedback. Number two, do a little freelance work. Again, this is your side hustle. So if you are, for example, with me, with the state, I did have to disclose that I did have this company before I took my last position with the state. That's just a regulation if you're a state employee. So yeah, you can have an additional job. It just obviously can't interfere with your main job. So I promise you, you will find the time if you're excited about it. Okay, I know I certainly was. And so I just loved waking up early and working on my book, working on it on nights and weekends, creating the YouTube channel, filming videos, all of that. So if I can do it, I know you can too. Again, those tips alone are going to really help you with phase three in testing those waters. Okay, so you're now ready for phase four. This one I'm calling build your online essentials. What I mean by that is the stuff you really have to run a business. So, number one, a professional website. You can do this yourself. Could you hire someone to do it? Sure, but shop around. There's lots of different rates for this, but I found it to be pretty easy. You just need a decent website to really use, not to really like seal the deal, but to build your credibility, right? And to show your professionalism, to have everything kind of in one place. So you can start small. And again, I recommend platforms like GoDaddy to do that, or Wix, whatever works for you. And then once you've done that, you want to move on to social media. Okay. Social media is a great way to market your business, but don't feel like you have to do everything all at once, and stick with platforms that you're really comfortable with. Take it from me. You don't want to spread yourself too thin, especially because you still have, right, your main job. So while you're still working 9 to 5, you want to, sure, post things, but pick a platform, just one or two, and stick with that. Once you feel really comfortable with that and you have yourself on a schedule, then maybe you can expand to other things. So, for example, for me, as someone who does a lot of public speaking, I did that a lot in my day job. So I knew something like YouTube would be really fun for me because I love talking to people. And then I love the idea that somebody could find a video of mine from a year or two ago, and it's still out there and it provides a lot of good value. So I started my YouTube channel not to try to get a gazillion followers, but because I wanted to create a library of videos on topics that I knew my clients could really use. So again, I had this company. I let my bosses know that I was kind of doing this on the side, and I was writing the book on the side, all those things. So if I can do that, again, you can too. What if you're comfortable speaking, but you don't want to do a bunch of videos? Maybe creating a podcast is the way to go. Again, a podcast is a great way to market your business. Or if you love Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, all those things, start a business page. Again, you just want to build an online presence to increase your credibility and your visibility. All of that will eventually lead to profitability. Okay, number three, content marketing. I basically touched upon that when I talked about YouTube and the podcast. So in addition to, again, posting regularly, even if it's just once a week, once every other week, you do want to have some other way to reach an audience. So think about who your ideal client is and speak to them. For me, as someone who loves public speaking, I knew a podcast would be a perfect fit. So would a YouTube channel. So I did both. I also knew that platforms like Facebook are large platforms where you could reach a lot of people. And since my book was primarily for women, we do have lots of men who've actually bought the book for either their wives, sisters, daughters, what have you. But all the lessons I teach in that book would be applicable to men and women both. We even have men who listen to the podcast. So guys, thank you so much. We appreciate your support. But in other words, you guys, you want to provide valuable content for your audience. Just put it out there. Podcasts, YouTube channels, these are all free ways that you can provide value. You're not looking to sell something in these platforms. Yes, just like everybody else who has a company, if they're using a podcast as a way to provide important information and value, then yeah, throughout the podcast and the YouTube videos, they're going to probably mention ways that you could work together. And that's fine. You want your audience to know that that's a possibility. So again, it really depends on what your content is, what your company is all about. And it's just a great way to give back. Provide tips for free. Provide content for free, whether it's a post on LinkedIn, whether it's a podcast episode. You just think about what's a good fit for you and then get busy and you'll love it. Okay, phase number 5 is crunching your numbers. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So, in other words, knowing your numbers is key. Have you ever watched an episode of Shark Tank? If you have, you know they go crazy on those folks that present to them if they don't know their numbers. So, if billionaires and millionaires think that knowing your numbers is important, I guess we should listen, right? So, I want the same for you. I want you to really know what your numbers are before you ever make the decision to leave that full time job. So, here's how. Number one, create a detailed budget to track your expenses and revenue. And again, these are just projections at first, right? What do you project you could make? Number two, savings. Savings are so important. You need to have a cushion. You need to have a way to fund your business and do it in a way that's not going to affect your retirement. For me, I had the best of both worlds. I loved education, training, teaching. So that's how I started, was as a school teacher. And then for, maybe 18, 19, 20 years of my career, it's been in management. So all of that led me to become a business consultant. And when I say business consultant, I still work with a lot of schools, and, higher education is one of my biggest clients, because once you've been in teaching, you really have sort of an insider track on how people learn. And if you've been in career tech, like I have for so many years, you also know what businesses are looking for in their employees and what schools need to do to kind of get them there, right? So for me, I knew that I had the luxury of looking forward to a teacher's pension check. So, although I took this leap of faith, because sure, a pension check is great, you do have that for the rest of your life, so that's awesome. However, I knew that what I was making at my full time job and what I would be making with my pension check, if it was just my pension check, it's not going to be the same. But I knew I did have regular money coming in that I could count on. So the differential between my pension check and what I was making as a full-time employee, that was my goal. How could I make up that difference? Well, that's where my company comes in. So although I took early retirement, I knew going in what I needed to make. And that's been my goal in running this company, is to make sure that I'm hitting my own financial goals. But before I took that leap of faith, I'm not going to sit there and just jump into the deep end. Like I said, I needed to have that financial cushion. So look at your savings. Where could you pull money from? What could be regular income coming in to help you get your business off the ground? Do you have a pension check or some sort of funds that could come in on a regular basis? So again, just plan that out way ahead of time. In fact, I was ready to take this leap of faith about, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I decided to stay for another year before I left, just because I knew I really needed to have that financial cushion so that I didn't have this pressure on myself to have to make a certain amount. So I want you to be prepared just like I was. It really helps to take the pressure off, and it brings you that joy to your work that's so important when you're trying to actually build your company. I want you to be passionate about it. And, that passion is going to build that confidence. When you build that confidence, you're going to just be able to put that out there, which can definitely affect your business potential. Now, say you've exhausted number one and number two, okay? You've gone through your budgeting, you've looked at your savings, but you're still going to need a little extra help. Okay, that's where you need to look at funding sources. Is it appropriate for you to get some sort of small business loan? And you guys, there are so many great loans out there for small businesses. So when you're first starting out, especially if you're a solo practitioner like me and you're running your own firm, then yeah, there are loans out there. Now, do people want to get into debt? Of course not. But there's nothing wrong with having that little bit of a cushion. Set those goals. See what you can afford, see what the rates are like, see if you need to get a business credit card, anything like that. Go to your local bank. Sometimes your local banks can give you the best rates and really support you on this journey. So again, if you're planning it out and you say, okay, this is where I need to be in year 1, 2, 3, year 5, right? You don't want to use your life savings. And for goodness sakes, don't fund your business with your retirement funding. When I talk about my pension check, that is, yes, that is my part of my retirement, but that's something that I get each and every year for the rest of my life. That doesn't include Social Security and other things that I have in savings. I'm not touching that. This is just money I'm going to have coming in anyway because I have a pension check. Okay. So again, I just want to be clear. I don't want you to go into major debt, but there's nothing wrong with having that business loan. You just need a clear plan on how to get those things paid off so you're not sacrificing your family's security and your own financial security in the future. All right, phase number 6, I want you to build those relationships. So I want you to do things like attend networking events. I mentioned that earlier. Grassroots marketing is a great way to get your name out there and to let people know that you've got this company or that you're getting ready to have this company, right? So part of your decision making can be, again, trying to see how many people would support you. Well, by building those relationships, those friendships with colleagues and with even your personal friends, they can end up being your first clients. So really think about that. Mentorship. Really think about creating those professional relationships that could give you the guidance and the support that you need. Now, if you don't have that in your life, personal friends can really help you, or professional coaches like me. Whether you used me or someone else, just make sure that you use someone who doesn't really have skin in the game in the same way you do. So sometimes with personal friends, sometimes their fear can become your fear, and you don't want that, right? Make sure you get an objective opinion. And then there's lots of other ways that you can get guidance, whether it's a podcast episode, a YouTube channel, things like that. Make sure you're reaching out for that kind of support to really inspire you. Collaborations are also really awesome. So maybe you could offer your goods or services for free in exchange for something else, and they could do the same. So think about collaborating with other folks that could lead you to the clients that you actually are looking for. It's a great way to, again, give back and to support perhaps other women who are trying to build their own businesses. So, for example, when I was looking for a book editor, what did I do? I reached out to another woman I knew who was working for the state, and she had just started her side business. She was a wonderful writer, and she had just started her own editing business. So again, that's a great example of women helping women and also helping out another small business owner. Last phase, number 7, I want you to unleash your CEO mindset. I talk about mindset a lot. And when I talk about a CEO mindset, I'm really talking about that feeling that you are the authority in your life, because you should be, right? So I want you to realize what you can and cannot control. So go back to previous episodes. I'll put them in the description box on YouTube and in the show notes, where I talk about what you can and cannot control. I talk about that mindset, because sometimes that could be standing in your own way of success. And I don't want that for you. I want you to have the ability to, yes, make an informed decision, but I don't want you to get stuck in that, paralysis by analysis. That's that perfectionism that's never good. So we don't want that for you. So create a positive mindset. Again, make sure you're coming from that abundance mindset instead of the scarcity mindset. The second thing I want you to do in this phase is to make sure you're prioritizing work-life balance. Because if you're running a side business, you guys, I had to really prioritize this. When I was writing the book and when I had my first couple of coaching clients, here I am still working this big job, my day job. So you have to prioritize work-life balance, okay? You can do this a little bit at a time. You don't have to dive in again all at once. So just prioritize that, really stay on top of that. And then the last tip I have for you with this phase is for you to really think about self-care. You need self-care the most when you're the busiest, okay? And it's one of those things that people just put on a back burner. And that's the irony, is you really need it the most when you're super busy, and especially when you're trying something new. That's when your confidence really needs that self-care so that you just feel good, okay? Go out there for that walk, take that bubble bath, get a massage, get your nails done, whatever the case may be. Really take care of yourself. Prioritize your health during this time, and you're going to feel great. All right, you guys, as we wrap up, let me just remind you that even thinking about turning your passion project, your side hustle, into a full-time business, it's very exciting. And listen, even if you never do this, I don't want you to sell yourself short. At least explore the possibility. This again might be something you just choose to do later on in retirement. So let's recap. The first thing you're going to do in phase 1 is you're going to evaluate that passion project. Next, in phase 2, you are going to create that solid business blueprint. Phase 3, you're going to test those waters. In phase 4, I want you to build that online presence. In phase 5, I want you to really stay on top of your finances. In phase 6, I want you to really think about your networking and building those relationships. And in phase 7, I want you to unleash your CEO mindset. Remember that every great business started with a small idea. Even the biggest businesses out there started with one idea and the one person who put that into place, right? Even if that company is making millions now and has thousands and thousands of employees, it always took that one person to get it started. And so what if that one person is you? You might have $1 million business, and even if it never made $1 million, whatever it needs to make in order for this to be a good financial decision for you, that's fine. Don't limit yourself on how much you have to make. Just realize that you do have the potential to really look at this. I'm living proof that you can turn your side hustle into a successful business, and definitely a business that fulfills you. When I go to quote work every day for my own company here at Shop Talk, I still can't believe it. I can't believe I started this business as a 55-year-old woman who was looking at retirement. And the fact that I got to take early retirement to not only have this business, but to be in this beautiful situation where I get to help people. I not only love helping people, but because I love everything I get to do in my business, I feel so privileged I get to do this every day. So the tools and strategies I shared with you, you guys, is really the way I got there. I went through all those steps, and it gave me the confidence that I needed in order to realize I was making an informed decision. And remember, betting on yourself is never wrong, okay? But I just don't want you to just bet on yourself just for the sake of saying, oh yeah, I can do this without a plan, okay? I want you to have a plan. I want you to have a dream, but I want you to have a plan too. And these steps are really going to help you do just that. All right, you guys, as we wrap up, you know I love saying our motto here at Shop Talk to remind you that you really are in charge of your day and you're in charge of how it goes. So here's our motto that you know I love to say at the end of each and every one of our podcast episodes, and it's this: if you're not having a fantastic day, you've got the power to make it one. All right, you guys, I cannot wait to see you in episode 50. Remember, we've got our special guest joining us, Miss Kimberly Brock, host of the She's Just Getting Started podcast. She's my personal business coach, and I cannot wait for you to meet her next week. Take care, everyone. I know our episode is over, but this is just the beginning. If you're ready to take action but don't know where to start, just head over to drdonshoptalk.com for lots of free resources, ways to work together, and for even more. Subscribe to the Dr. Dawn Shop Talk YouTube channel. Remember, ladies, you don't have to take this journey alone. I've got you covered. Till next time.